Hello everyone, I am Robin Warner and I am driving the 2022 Acura MDX A-Spec. And it's not even 2022 yet, which means I am driving the future. But it's not just the future. Acura has burdened the MDX with the title of flagship model, which means this car, this SUV, represents the best of both luxury and performance that Acura has to offer. That is, of course, excluding the Acura NSX, which they call the Halo car. But anyway, before I get too far, let me first tell you what the Acura MDX is. The Acura MDX is new for 2022, starting its fourth generation on a new platform that is unique to Acura and indeed to the MDX. Even so, it is still a small sport utility vehicle according to the government, which makes it the largest small SUV I've driven. It is available with either front or all-wheel drive, seats 7, and comes in 4 trims: Base, Technology, A-Spec, and Advanced, which makes the MDX you see here the second highest trim in the lineup. The A-Spec MDX comes standard with all-wheel drive. That is optional on the Base and Technology package models. All-wheel drive is also standard on the top-level Advanced package models. Regardless of trim, every MDX gets the same engine and transmission. Not having the Advanced package means going without the 10.5-inch heads-up display and remote engine start key fob. But you do get sport seats with faux suede trim, Advanced MDXs get a leather trim, and a flat-bottom sport steering wheel. This particular MDX has the premium liquid carbon metallic paint for an extra $500. The Acura MDX starts at $47,920 for the front-wheel drive base model. The Acura MDX A-Spec starts at $58,125. My test car costs $58,625 because of the aforementioned paint, and the top-of-the-line Advance starts at $61,675. The main competitors of the MDX are the Audi Q7, the Lexus RX 350L, and the Volvo XC90. The Acura MDX is still powered by a 3.5-liter V6 producing as much as 290 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque. That power goes through a new automatic transmission, however, with 10 speeds replacing the 9-speed of the 2020 model. And, as I mentioned earlier, that power then goes to all 4 wheels. The MDX is 198.4 inches long, 78.7 inches wide, and 67.1 inches tall. The Acura MDX A-Spec tips the scales at 4,534 pounds. This combination is good for 19 miles per gallon in the city, 25 on the highway, and 21 combined. This according to the EPA. Oh, and one more thing. If anyone tells you they have a 2021 Acura MDX, they are liars. Acura skipped the model year with this new program, so it goes 2020, 2022. Now, let me show you around and inside. All right, taking a look at the outside of the 4th generation 2022 Acura MDX. And what you're looking at is a new car riding on a new platform that follows the design language that Acura introduced with the 2019 Acura RDX. And one thing that they're very proud of is the longer dash to axle ratio, in the front. So from the base of the windshield right there to the front axle, that's a longer measurement than before. Gives it more of a swept back look. And generally speaking, the language works in this car. In fact, I think it works better than it does on any other model yet. And I think that's because this is a longer and wider car, so it just gives the lines a chance to flow more naturally. Nothing feels stunted or cut off in any way. It's just got a nice longer flow to it. The car itself is more than 2 inches longer and 2 inches wider. And in addition to that, it also has a wider front and rear track and a longer wheelbase. This being an A-Spec model, says so right there, we roll on 20-inch wheels. The base car comes with 19s, and it's a specific to A-Spec design. Inside those wheels is also a 1-inch larger diameter front brake disc, which is nice for stopping because this thing is not small, as you can tell. Looking in back, you know, you've got a nice swept back roof, but it's not that like weird fastback cutoff coupe like roofs that many are doing, which I appreciate. And you do get 2 big fat exhaust outlets to play with for that transversely mounted 3.5 liter V6. Okay, moving inside. This being an A-Spec MDX, you've got a flat bottom steering wheel, which is unique to this trim and looks a little bit sportier. And then you also get this faux suede, I think they call it ultra suede inserts. That's unique to the A-Spec as well. However, all MDXs get standard wireless Qi charging for your smartphone, and that is a big pad for that. And you also get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The screens are a 12.3-inch instrument cluster screen that goes right there, as well as another 12.3-inch center console screen. And that's where you have standard wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, and Amazon Alexa built in. You do get drive modes, 4 of them. It is Snow, Comfort, Normal, and Sport. And then you do have the push button shifter and what they call the true touchpad interface right there. More on that later. Generally speaking, the seats are comfortable. You got a lot of space and you got a lot of buttons and gadgets to play with. Oh, and you do get a lot of natural light from the 3-row panoramic moonroof. One clever thing that Acura installed on its MDX is a rear camera washer, which I have to say I really appreciate because check it out. See, if you pull it right here, that's the rear window and the camera. Spray that. Oh yeah, I can see again. Okay, there are 3 ways you can configure the middle row. This is the first way, where you have 3 seats, kind of a bench style. There's a second way. You pull this lever right here, and you have more of a captain's chair setup with cup holders and a nice little spot for, you know, stuff. And then there's a third way. Keep this down. I'm gonna put this down as well. There's another lever down here. Pull that. That releases this. This comes off, and oh so carefully take it out. Put this back, and now you have a 6-passenger 3-row SUV that gives more space for stuff and a walk path to the 3rd row if you want to have that without having to move the seats down, things like that. However, it should be known there is a switch right here. The seats also slide like that. Being a 3-row SUV, you'd expect 3 different numbers for cargo room. Space behind the 3rd row, space with that 3rd row folded, and with the 2nd and 3rd row folded. But no, Acura gives 6 numbers. For each of the 3 general configurations, you get the amount of room you can reasonably expect to fit without too much work, and the actual filled to the brim maximum space you have. So, here it goes. Behind the 3rd row, you get 16.3 cubic feet or 18.1 cubic feet if you really stuff it. Fold that 3rd row flat and you get 39.1 cubic feet or 48.3 cubic feet potentially. And finally, with both the 2nd and 3rd row folded, you can reasonably expect to fit 71.4 cubic feet and as much as 95 cubic feet if you really stuff it full of stuff. Also, the MDX has a subfloor for extra storage. You can also remove that subfloor for a deeper floor or flip it over for an easier to clean plastic floor. All right, we got to start with a little bit of context here. For some reason, the government considers this a small sport utility vehicle, but this is a very large 3-row sport utility vehicle. So the government effectively is wrong here. And I want to make that point clear for 2 reasons. One, this is big, it's almost 200 inches long. But secondly, you have to have the right context when it comes to how this thing feels to drive. This is a big SUV, 4,500 pounds, that's 2.25 tons. And this is not gonna be, a spirited sports car kind of drive, right? You can fit a lot of people and a lot of stuff. Plus, it's almost 80 inches wide. So this is just a big footprint to work with, okay? That said, you've got a lot of great comfort here. I think that the MDX, when it comes to comfort, is a very worthy flagship model for Acura. The seats are very comfortable. I like the way the interior is laid out. The 12.3-inch instrument cluster screen is easy to read and easy to configure, and you can configure it, of course. In the digital world, everything is adjustable, and it's really nice that Acura decided to make everything that comes to connectivity effectively standard. When it comes to connectivity, though, there is a little bit of controversy here because the MDX does have the same true touchpad that the RDX has and other new Acuras have. And it's controversial because it's got that absolute positioning setup, which means the position on the pad of your finger is always the position on the screen. It's not like a scrolling touchpad on a laptop. And that takes a little bit of getting used to if you're used to the other infotainment screens, like if you have a different kind of setup in a different car. But this is where I think journalists like me are generally not very good judges of those kind of things, because while we can correctly opine on how intuitive something is, because we drive different cars all the time, we don't have any time to get used to how this works. And I think once you get used to it, it becomes pretty easy to adapt to it so that you can do a lot of things without even looking down at the screen, and you can keep your eyes on the road more. And really, that's the end goal of systems like this, is that you can have your attention diverted less and still get things done with your infotainment needs, which is great. Plus, you also have a lot of separate controls for the for HVAC, air conditioning, which is of course climate controlled, and you have a lot of other nice things that are becoming more common but still really nice to have: heated seats, cooled seats, etc., etc. More importantly for me, and more fundamentally, the 4th generation MDX rides on a whole new platform. And this is not only new for the MDX, it is unique to Acura and indeed unique to the MDX. So it is on its own new platform that is, according to Acura, 32% more torsionally rigid than the outgoing 3rd generation model. And that makes a big difference when it comes to not only ride comfort, but also handling predictability. It's interesting though, because Acura put a lot of energy into an all-new platform and worked really hard to make it a lot more rigid, and the body has new parts. The hood is aluminum, the front fenders are aluminum, try to take a little bit of weight off the nose, and yet the engine is carryover. It's still a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6, still makes the same 290 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque, which is, at first glance, that's a bit of a disappointment. If you're going to put so much energy into a new car and on top of that call it your flagship model, you'd think you'd want to run more than your tried and true V6. But to be fair to Acura, they put a brand new 10-speed manual, I wish. They put a brand new 10-speed automatic transmission in it, and the big difference between the 9 and the 10 speed comes in first gear. first gear is now 9% lower than the first gear of the 9-speed transmission, which means you get a lot more punch off the line. You get more torque off the line. It's a big SUV, but you get moving nice and quickly, and the sound from the V6, you know, that's pretty darn reasonable. And I have to say, in this modern age of constant turbocharging, it's nice. It's kind of it's novel almost to have a naturally aspirated V6 to work with. So there are benefits to it, even if the barstool arguments might be a little bit harder to win because you don't have a turbocharger and you have only 290 horsepower. One other thing that this car has is the next generation super handling all-wheel drive system. That's the SH all-wheel drive system. This MDX can now send 70% of the power to the rear wheels when it wants / needs to, and it can send 100% of that 70% of power to either the left or the right, depending on the dynamic needs of the car. That is impressive. The super handling all-wheel drive is in a lot of Acuras now, and it proves very capable of giving the car a more balanced feel and more of a rear-wheel drive feel, even though this is inherently a front-wheel drive setup. The base MDX is front-wheel drive, the V6 is transversely mounted, and that means that you have more weight over the nose and you have an inherent front-wheel drive setup. So the super handling all-wheel drive really helps change the behavior of the car in ways that make it much more driver enthusiast friendly. What helps that even more is Acura did a great job tuning this suspension. Because they had a much more rigid platform to work with, they actually softened the spring rate, and yet they could do a lot of things to sharpen the handling dynamics of this MDX. This turn-in is remarkably sharp given the size and center of gravity of this SUV, given this nearly 115-inch wheelbase. You have the ability to kind of get spirited with this thing and really sprint it around. The MDX is never underdamped. It feels tight, it feels taut, and you can move it around. Yes, the car does roll and lean a bit, but it's not ever out of control. And the steering has a nice weight to it, and it has good precise feel. You can place this MDX pretty accurately, especially again, given its size. It's pretty impressive. This has certainly not neutral chassis balance, but it leans more neutral than you'd ever expect. And if you get super heavy with the throttle, you can actually get the rear end to wiggle a little bit, which bluntly shocked me. How would something this size with this wheelbase and a transversely mounted V6 do that? Technology, man, it's kind of an incredible thing. One fun caveat for that, though. So I went on this drive, and it genuinely impressed me that this MDX could handle as well as it did, given its size and weight. Then I got out of the car, and I distinctly smelled brakes. Like, not subtle, like a decent amount of brakes. And that's when you realize that there is a lot of, tightening up the inside brake, working with the ABS system to put brake pressure on individual wheels to give that more neutral behavior. If you really start leaning on this car, you can, but you're actually working the brakes a lot harder than you'd expect, even though you're not on the brake pedal, which is something that the engineer in me goes, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense, but you don't think about it as you're driving it. And that in of itself is kind of another compliment to the Acura engineers. They did a good job to give you kind of this like natural driving dynamic behavior. You just have to know that it's not pure chassis that does it. There are electronics and wizardry going on with the ABS system to help tuck that nose in just a little bit more, to help distribute the power and do all those things that need to get done. And that's when I say, thank God the front brakes are more than an inch larger in diameter and all those things, because yeah, if you lean on this car, you're going to be working the brakes. isn't that all kind of like, you know, well, foolhardy? I mean, aren't I being pretty silly to be talking about driving dynamics in a 3-row luxury SUV? This is supposed to be something that is comfortable to take your 3 kids and your dog and all your stuff on a family vacation for 2 weeks and have enough room for everything and have enough USB ports and cup holders that no one goes crazy and there's not mutiny inside the car. That's what this is for, and it's for you to feel comfortable while you're doing it. It's for you to feel satisfied that you've got, you know, leather upholstery and you've got a really nice sound system and you've got gadgets to play with and you can connect your smartphone and all these things. It's not about driving performance. You're not going to take this to the tail of the dragon with your buddies. You're going to take this to the Smoky Mountains with your family. And you're going to go to the top of Klingman's Dome and go, ooh, ah, look at that, look at that. Here's the thing. If you happen to get a nice curvy stretch of road around the Smoky Mountains, which is where the tail of the dragon is, you could have a little fun in this MDX. And, you know, maybe your kids will have some fun too. Klingman's Dome is lovely. I hope you guys take great pictures. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. Well, there's no denying that the Audi Q7 has its strengths. This is a very clean looking interior and a stylish, comfortable place to be. It's also, dynamically speaking, pretty darn respectable considering that this thing is quite large itself. That said, the 2-liter 4-cylinder in this car is a touch anemic compared to the MDX's V6, and the exterior styling, for me at least, is definitely behind the MDX. That said, the Germans are very good at driving dynamics, and this thing is a lot of fun to drive, considering the fact that it's a 3-row SUV, just like the MDX. So from a pure driving dynamics point of view, these things are pretty darn close. But I guess in a way that's a compliment to the MDX that it can be spoken about, have a conversation with the Germans when it comes to driving dynamics, because generally speaking, they are the leaders in the segment, especially in that category. And the MDX is definitely playing in the same field. Well, it must be said, from a power perspective and from a ride comfort perspective, the Lexus is actually quite nice. It's a very comfortable car to be, and you have a good V6 to help you get going. That said, this thing is woefully behind when it comes to driving dynamics, especially when it comes to initial turn-in. Steering's very light and very slow to react front end, and there's a lot more body roll in this thing compared to the MDX or that Audi as well. So the Lexus is certainly the ride comfort, more leisurely way to go when it comes to 3-row SUVs. Now this Volvo XC90, by contrast, is very clean, very beautiful. It's a really nicely designed SUV on the outside. On the inside, it's a little bit too, like, I don't know, postmodern. There's this nice big vertical screen, but you've got very few buttons to work with, and it's less intuitive than other systems are. However, I'm sure if you owned it, you'd get used to it and learn to love it. From a dynamics point of view, the 2-liter engine in here is very responsive, and there's good power, but the NVH is not quite there. It's a little bit on the buzzy side compared to the smoother running V6s in the Lexus and the Acura. And from a dynamics point of view, this is clearly more comfortable to provide a luxurious ride than it is to provide spirited handling and good engagement. The steering's very light and not terribly informative. Communication is not great here. But if you want to look good, this Volvo actually makes a very strong case for itself. It's excellent styling.